Our today's topic is construction of histogram for unequal intervals. Do you have some queries in such histograms? If yes, then watch this video to clear your queries. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalam O Alikum. I'm Engineer Hira Naz from Tutoring Academy. Welcome here. In our past video, we learned construction of histogram for equal intervals. But today, we are about to learn construction of histogram for unequal intervals. Let us understand the phrase unequal interval first, then we'll move to the histogram, etc. You can see here the difference between 20 and 24 is 4. Again, you can see here the difference between 24 and 25 and 29 is 4. But the difference between 30 and 39 is 9. And the difference between 40 and 44 is 4. And the difference between 45 and 49 is 4. And the difference between 50 and 54 is 4. And the difference between 55 and 64 is 9. So it means you can see here the gap between intervals is not same. That is called unequal intervals. Understand? So we can say the class intervals are not equal. Next term is histogram. As we know, histogram is a graphical representation of a frequency distribution. Whenever class intervals are unequal, frequency must be adjusted by dividing each class frequency on its class interval size. If the interval becomes double, frequency is divided by 2, so that the area of a bar is in proportion to the areas of the other bars. Let us do that with an example. Let's suppose here we are given an example, draw a histogram illustrating the following table. Means we are given frequency distribution table where our variable is x. You can call this as your variable, which is age. So in this case our variable is x and the number of men, and we know the number of times a thing repeats is basically frequency. So we can call this column as frequency and this column as our variable. Now look at the given data. As class intervals are unequal, the height of each rectangle cannot be made equal to the frequency. Therefore, we obtain proportional heights by dividing each frequency with class interval size. Let's do that in the following table. Here, copy this first column as it is, which is for each. From 20 to 24, 25 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 44, 45 to 49, 50 to 54, and the last is 55 to 64. Now create its class boundaries here. So we can name that column as class boundaries. Class boundaries. How do we create class boundaries? Class boundary is simply obtained by adding two successive class limits and dividing their sum by 2. The value so obtained is taken as upper limit of the previous class and the lower limit for the next class. But first class lower boundary is always taken from only half point preceding the lower limit. That is here 20 and before 20 here is 19.5. Half point preceding. So our starting limit is 19.5. Now for next boundaries, what you have to do? You have to add these both successive class boundaries or class limits, you can say. Adding them both and dividing by 2, you will get your upper limit for this class and lower limit for next upcoming class. So how you can do that? You can do that 24 plus 25 is this, divided by 2 is 24.5. So here our upper limit is 24.5 and this is upper limit of class 1 and the lower limit of next class, that is class 2. Again for here what you have to do, you have to add next two successive class limits. 29 plus 30 and dividing them by 2 you will get 29.5. 29.5. This is upper limit of class 2 and the lower limit of class 3. Again what you have to do is 39 plus 40 divided by 2 is 39.5. Again, this is upper limit of class 3 and the lower limit of class 4, 39.5. Next, what you have to do is 44 plus 45 divided by 2 is 44.5. Again, next what you have to do, this is lower limit of 4, upper limit of class 4 and lower limit of class 5. Again, 49 plus 50 divided by 2 is 49.5. Next is, this is upper limit of class, this class and the lower limit of next class, 49.5. Next is 54 plus 55 dividing them by 2, 54.5. This is upper limit of this class and lower for the next class. As the starting limit was half point preceding, so our last limit will be half point more, 64.5. Now list out class interval age, which is basically the size of each class. Class size in this case is just difference of each class boundary. Let's calculate that. First we should name this column as class interval. That is basically class interval size, which is difference between upper and lower limit of class of each class. So the difference between 24.5 and 19.5 is 5. So here class size, its size is 5. Class size for first class is 5. 29.5 minus 24.5 is 5. Class size for next class is 39.5 minus 29.5 is 10. 44.5 minus 39.5, 5. 49.5 minus 44.5, 5. And second last is 54.5 minus 49.5, 5. And 64.5 minus 54.5 is 10. So, our class size column is ready. Next is frequency column, which is just the number of times each class repeats. In the given data, here frequency is given. So, we can just copy this column from here to here. We name this column as frequency. And we have to just copy this column here. 1, 2, 26, 22, 20, 15 and 14. In the last column, we have to record the proportional heights. For that, we have to divide frequency of each class with its class interval size. So, let's do that. Here is frequency 1. Divide this frequency by 5. You will get your proportional height. First we should name this column as proportional height. Proportional height. So 1 divide 5, you will get 0.20. Then you have to divide 2, divide 5, you will get 0.4. Next 26 divide 10, you will get 2.6. Next 22 divide 5, you will get 4.4. 20 divide 5, you will get 4.0. 15 divide 5, you will get 3.0. And 14 divide 10, you will get 1.4. Now we have to construct its histogram using only two columns. The column of class boundaries and proportional height. So for that, what you have to do? First you have to draw two perpendicular lines as like this. You can see this column as x-axis and this column as y-axis. Now you have to plot class boundaries on x-axis because these are independent of proportional heights. So class boundaries. Next you have to plot proportional heights along y-axis. So you can name here this axis as proportional heights. We have to plot proportional height along y-axis because proportional height is depending upon class boundary. Understand? Now we have to take suitable scale for both axes. First come to x-axis. Here you can see for x-axis we are going to plot class boundaries as here the minimum gap for class boundaries is 5. So we plot values on x-axis with the gap of 5. Understand? So our first value is here 19.5. So this is 0 axis and this is 19.5. Next is 24.5. Now our scaling for x-axis is done. Now come to y-axis or a vertical axis which is designed for proportional height. For proportional height, how do you take the scaling? What you have to do? Here come to the proportional height column and you can see here the maximum value is 4.4. You can take hint from here 0.4. So you can take the scale of gap 0.4. So by giving this gap, we have plotted the values along y-axis. Our scaling is done. Now look at the table. First mark class boundaries along x-axis and then make rectangle of proportional height. Let's see how to do that. First is 19.5. This is our lower limit 19.5 and the upper limit is 24.5 and the height for this interval is 0.2 somewhere here. So we have to make here rectangle of this height. Next is the lower limit is 24.5 and the upper limit is 29.5 and height for that is 0.4 which is somewhere here. Next is 29.5, the lower limit and the upper limit is 39.5. That is here. And height for this is 2.6. So, we mark this as 2.6 is somewhere here. Lower limit was this, 29.5. So we have to make a rectangle. Next is 39.5. The lower limit and the upper limit is 44.5. and height for that is 4.4. 4.4 is the maximum height in our case, which is somewhere here. So this is a rectangle for this height. Next is lower limit 44.5 and the upper limit is 49.5, and height for this is 4. 4.0 is almost 4. So 4 is somewhere here. You have to make here rectangle. Next is 49.5, the lower limit, and the upper limit is 54.5, and the height for this is 3. Height for this is 3, which is somewhere here. You can say here, and a rectangle for this interval is this. The next is 54.5 lower limit and the upper limit is 64.5. Height for that is 1.4. So 1.4 is here. We can mark their heights. Like for first interval our height is 0.2, for next our height is 0.4, for next our height is 2.6, for next our height is 4.4, which is maximum, next our height is 4.0, next our height is 3.0, next is 1.4. Now we are done with histogram of unequal intervals. Let me recall this whole process. Whenever you are given frequency distribution of unequal intervals and you are asked to construct a histogram, what you have to do, you have to make the column of class boundaries as well as proportional height. From these columns you have to construct a histogram. For histogram, what you have to do, you have to draw the perpendicular lines for x-axis and y-axis, and you have to plot your class boundaries and proportional heights on that. What you have to do at the end, you have to make rectangles of your given values. Understand? If you have any query, drop your question in the comment section. I'll definitely cater your question. That's all for today. See you soon in the next video. Stay safe and healthy. Allah Hafiz.